Well, thanks, Calgary Flames. Thanks to you, the Nashville Predators back in control of their playoff fate. Can they keep it with a big win tonight over the Carolina Hurricanes? Plus, where are they now? We take a look at what the Predators' 4 trade deadline exits have done with their new teams. We'll talk Mattias Ekholm, Mikael Granlund, Tanner Jeannot, and Nino Niederreiter today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, available to you wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer for Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime who I'm told is going to go look up the GoldenEye Nintendo 64 pause music immediately after we're done recording.
This is why God made YouTube, for moments just like this. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
Yeah, if any N64 kid from back in the day will tell you that slaps hard.
Well, when you were humming it, I swear to you, I was like, you started, I'm like, I'm ready to jump in on Be Our Guest from Beauty and the Beast. And then, 4 notes, and I'm like, man, did I read that wrong?
Yeah, the two very different things.
Yeah, two very different songs that slap.
Yeah, two good movies, 2 very different songs.
Yeah.
Nashville Predators are still alive somehow.
It's just so fun.
It seems like the narrative changes every other game. Forget about being the Chicago Blackhawks. Vegas Golden Knights, though. Let's go all in on that.
If we had a stretch of this entire season, Nick, where we've been like, we know exactly what's going to happen with this team. No, friends, we have not. And it's not a reflection on Nick and I. Let me be clear.
Yeah. The Predators might win the draft lottery. They might win the Stanley Cup. I would not be surprised either way.
No.
Well, let's talk about tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes, because this is another marquee game. Carolina is the second best team in the entire NHL this season, 109 points, only behind the Boston Bruins, 50, 18, and 9 on the season. And bad news for Nashville, 2 bad news. One is they've won 3 straight, so they're on a bit of a heater. They have to be, because they're fighting for position in the standings right now. They really want to lock up that number 1 seed in the Metropolitan Division. And number 2, remember the last time these 2 teams played in?
You know what? Juuse Saros does. Juuse Saros does.
Juuse Saros has a fruit basket still sitting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is the game in which the Hurricanes put 67 shots on the Nashville Predators net. Juuse Saros stopped 64 of them, which is the Predators' record. This is going to be probably in danger of being the same kind of game, and which means Predators are really going to have to hone it in and make 0 mistakes, because there is 0 room for error in this game.
No, and it would be so nice if the Predators would go into this team and face a Carolina team that's like, we're good. We're going to rest some players. But like you said, they are still making sure they lock up their number 1 spot. So this is a game where you're going to see them working hard to earn those 2 points, just like the Predators are. There are just no easy gimme games for Nashville. And you have, players having career years for Carolina. We talked about the 67 shots, y'all, 67 shots.
Those are a lot of shots, Ann.
It's a lot of shots, friends. I mean, that's like Lower Broad on a Saturday night with a bachelorette party. It's just not, it's not okay. But like you said, this may very well be that same kind of game. Carolina just puts pucks on net. The last 5 games, they average 37.2 shots per game. Nashville averages only 28 shots per game. So this is definitely going to be a game where you're going to see the difference in these two teams, the style, the way that they play. And like you said, it's got to be mistake-free hockey for Nashville because Carolina is just tearing it up.
Yeah, and also the Predators give up a lot of shots per game. So that's probably a giant red flag for this game. At the same time, Anne, what an opportunity for some of these Nashville Predators. And look, we talked about some of the guys like Tommy Novak and Luke Evangelista and stuff. But how about a guy like Kevin Gravel, who
Yeah.
has been playing his patootie off over the last little bit, just absolutely stole the show during that 5-on-3 penalty kill
Yes.
the other night. You have Jeremy Lazan, who's stepping up into a bigger role, and I thought has been pretty solid. Dante Fabro, whose play in the second half of the season, I think, isn't talked about enough, especially since he signed that new contract. You know what? Even a guy like Cal Foote, who, hasn't been spectacular at times since coming over in that Tanner Jeannot trade, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I thought over the last couple of games, he's somebody who hasn't made a lot of mistakes or a lot of glaring mistakes. So this is a good opportunity for these young players, especially this defensive team. Spencer Stastny just called up another one to kind of go out there and prove that, hey, like we're solid. Like we're fighting for a spot on this team next year. Look what we can do. We can go out and hold our own against one of the best offensive teams in the NHL. This is an opportunity for that defense to show up tonight, especially the younger people on that defense.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. If the Nashville Predators can rise to it and kind of close that gap of disparity between offensive weapons and where the defense is, if the defense, like you said, can step up, players like Kevin Gravel, let's see these guys. Spencer Stastny, I've been really impressed with his game. You notice in the last game, he got time in overtime. So you know that John Hynes is liking what he's seeing from him when it comes to puck management. So if they can close that gap and provide Juuse Saros with a little bit more defensive support and not make some mistakes, that's a huge step forward for this Predators team. Will that be what it takes to win this game? It's going to take that and more to win this game tonight for the Nashville Predators. Talking after the game, John Hynes was saying, that we're seeing these players like Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista really mature and kind of develop into NHL players. But the next step they have to take is being able to string together performances of the caliber that we saw. Dallas, kind of a rough game. Then they picked it back up. This is sort of the pattern game that where the Predators would maybe not be able to bring their best game. He's like, let's see some of these guys, Kevin Gravel, Cal Foote, Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista. Let's see them take their maturing to another level and string together these kind of performances. Tonight would be a really great night to see that happen, especially, we talked about the defense, but offensively, the Predators are going to have to get some pucks in net to keep this game, close, to keep in this competition. They're going to have to score goals. I don't necessarily see Carolina winning or losing a game 2-1, 1-0. Like we're going to need some offense here.
Yeah, that is going to be another Juuse Saros fruit basket game if that's the case. Let me tell you that one.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good test for everybody. So we'll have to see what happens. It is a 7:00 Central puck drop per usual at Bridgestone Arena. This arena is going to be loud.
Yes.
Again, Preds. If this would greatly benefit them if they could get one of those trademark early starts like they had against Vegas just to get the crowd into it, just to get the crowd engaged. You're going to have to hold the lead after that, which has been a problem for the team this season. But if they can get out to an early start, energize this crowd, I think it's going to be an interesting game all around. So more on that coming up tomorrow on the Locked On Predators podcast. But for now, Ann, it's time to take a trip down memory lane. We're going to check in with the 4 Predators who were traded away at the deadline and see how they're doing. Anne is already rolling her eyes at the eventual Mattias Ekholm conversation. Some of these players have done really, really well and been perfect fits. Some have been absolutely trash. And thank you for the draft picks, respective teams. We'll talk about who's who in just a second. First, though, I want to mention today's show brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are almost here, which means now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And that's because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything. Money line, point scores, 3 points drained, player props like how many rebounds is Joel Embiid going to have, how many points would LeBron James have in a game, and exclusive bets like the 2x3, which are 2 3-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner, the NBA. It is time for some retro talk, and by retro, I mean all the way back to February 2023.
It seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the changes the Nashville Predators have made over the years, or over the month.
It does seem like a long time ago. Do you see that?
It's tough.
Eons.
It is a year. It has been a year. We thought we'd go and take a little walk down at memory lane. We've talked so much about the changes the Predators have made, this version of the Nashville Predators, that we thought we'd check in on the people that indirectly helped make it happen. Mattias Ekholm, Tanner Jeannot, Mikael Granlund, Nino Niederreiter, all traded away at the deadline. How are they doing with their new teams? And let's just get the heartbreak out of the way, shall we? Mattias Ekholm traded to the Edmonton Oilers for a first-round pick and Tyson Barrie.
Yeah.
What do you make of Ekholm's time in Edmonton?
What's funny is I have never watched so many Oilers games in my life. Just because I want to see how is he doing. And look, Ekholm was a great pickup for the Oilers. This is somebody that this is a piece that the Oilers really have needed to be competitive. With Mattias Ekholm, get this stat. With Mattias Ekholm in the lineup, the Oilers are 14-2-1. Now, I'm not saying it's all Mattias Ekholm, but I'm not saying it's all Mattias Ekholm.
You're going to go ahead and say that.
I'm going to just go ahead and just let that hang out there, and you do with that statistic what you will. I have a good friend who works for the Edmonton Oilers, and she was kind of laughing. We were texting back and forth during the Oilers game last night, and she was laughing. They actually did a segment called the Ekholm Effect, because they have been so pleased in Edmonton with what he has brought to the team. They love him. They love that Ida is excited about having winters again. So, the family's excited to be there too. Hurts a little, but happy for them.
Enjoy your winter, I guess.
But Ekholm himself, he has done really, really well for this team defensively. Like we all know, he's an extremely responsible defenseman. But what I found really interesting is the results that we're seeing with his defensive partner. He's partnered with 23-year-old Evan Bouchard. And with Mattias Ekholm and Bouchard partnered together, little 23-year-old Evan, not little, young 23-year-old Evan has 3 goals and 15 points in the 17 games that he's played with Mattias. In the 61 games that Bouchard played before Mattias Ekholm became his partner, he only had 3 goals and 15 points. So I think you're seeing Mattias Ekholm coming in. He is contributing to this team defensively, but I also think it's something that shouldn't be surprising to Nashville because we've seen Mattias Ekholm partner with some of these younger defensemen and really help set them up for success too. And they're seeing that in Edmonton. So Edmonton, I think, is more than delighted with this trade. You know, they did lose also prospect Reed Schaefer. So we're going to see that may end up coming back to be another benefit. And I don't think Nashville can complain about Tyson Barrie. Like, I was in emotional distress and was like, I don't even care.
Yeah.
I don't even care who it is. Like Jesus on ice skates. I don't even care.
Yeah.
But Tyson Barrie's been a great addition on and off the ice. He's somebody that the Predators have really liked his performance. They also really like him in the locker room. I'm not still saying it was okay and I'm good with it, but this has been a trade that I think both teams, you know, feel okay about.
Yeah. And you talk about Tyson Barrie. Boy, in retrospect, are we happy? I don't know if he was a throw-in or what, but are we happy that the Nashville Predators got him? Because when Roman Josi went down, when Ryan McDonagh went down those few games, when the Preds just started adding veteran after veteran to the IR, you needed somebody like Tyson Barrie who's gone in there and played top minutes with some top teams, and it's paying off for the Predators. 11 points in 19 games, which is kind of, you know, the same pace he had at Edmonton. So, you know, he's somebody who's been playing really good hockey. Reed Schaefer, I think, you know, that's a long-term project. I think the Nashville Predators really want to kind of exploit. But the other thing is, when you talk about the trade itself, you know, the Oilers have Ekholm under contract for 3 more years.
True.
So they have, you know, him locked up. So this isn't just like a bunch of people for a rental. You know, they're investing in the rest of Mattias Ekholm's prime years, which I think benefits them. The thing that surprised me, Ann, is I had an opportunity to watch, I think it was the Oilers and Kings earlier this week. The Oilers won that one. But, you know, I was watching Ekholm play, and it was almost kind of the way he played under Peter Laviolette, which was a little bit more offensive minded. He was able to jump into the play. We talked about it. You know, he was kind of the anchor on the Nashville Predators to let other players do that, whether it was PK Subban or, you know, this year with guys like Alexander Carrier. He was kind of the guy that sat back while everybody else, you know, kind of jumped in the play. He was just kind of there to man the fort. The Oilers seem to have kind of transported him and be like, no, jump into the play. Like, we see your offensive ability. We see your, you know, power play quarterbacking. We see your puck movement. Like, feel free to do that. And Evan Bouchard's kind of the same type of player too. It's like they've taken the reins off of him a little bit, you know, and that surprised me a little bit, because when you got Mattias Ekholm, you know, you're kind of thinking, okay, they just want like a really good, responsible defenseman, somebody who's not going to be too much, just somebody who's really good defensively, which was something they've been missing. And instead, they've kind of turned Ekholm into this big, you know, puck moving two-way threat, which, you know, when we heard the Oilers wanted a puck moving defenseman, we were kind of thinking the same vein as like an Erik Karlsson or somebody like that, somebody who puts up a lot of points. But, you know, we're starting to see Ekholm's ability to puck handle, like we did a few years ago in Nashville, come back to the forefront with the Oilers.
Yeah, he's had some really great games offensively. I'm just going to throw this out there because it's a fact. On my birthday, he scored 2 goals. And in the words of Michael Jordan, I took that personally. So we are seeing more movement from Ekholm. We're seeing a little bit more develop in his game. And look, what did Edmonton need? You know, you've got Leon Draisaitl and you've got Connor McDavid. How do they not have a cup? How do they not have a cup? I think Mattias Ekholm is a really important piece for them. You know, let's see what this does. Now, I'm not saying that if they win the cup, it's solely because of Mattias Ekholm. I'm also not saying.
Just go ahead and say it. Say it, Ann.
I'm just saying maybe his letters are a little bigger if they engrave it. I don't know.
Yeah, if it were up to you, there would just be a carving of Mattias Ekholm's face, I think.
It's a nice Swedish structure.
It is. Let's talk about somebody who we're going to see this week. Another person who has done pretty well in his new home, Nino Niederreiter.
Yeah.
Traded to the Winnipeg Jets for a couple of early picks, second round pick.
Mhm.
And 6 goals, 4 assists in 18 games, which isn't too shabby.
Yeah. Did this trade surprise you at all that they would trade Nino to the Jets? I was surprised that they would trade him to a division rival.
We talked about this before. Yeah. I mean, it
Did
was
they
one of
really have
those
so
where,
little hope for the Predators?
yeah. It was like, and here's the thing, like the fact that I think that trade happened like Saturday, the
Mhm.
week before the deadline. I'm saying like the second round pick the Preds got was, probably pretty good. Like I think that was probably good value. I
Mhm.
just think, is there a team that's not in your division that would have paid that same thing? Or is David Poyle just like sold, highest
Yeah.
bidder? There you go.
Yeah.
Uh, Although I'm sure at the time David Poyle didn't expect the Predators to be chasing the Jets for a playoff spot either. I
Nope.
don't think that was in the cards or expectations. It did surprise me. And you know what? Nino Niederreiter is giving the Jets exactly what they
Yes.
need, which is depth. We've talked about the Jets a little bit earlier this season when we did some of our Western Conference Wednesdays. They had the high end scoring, guys like Kyle Connor really stepping up this year. They got Josh Morrissey from the blue line having a career year. And they had Connor Hellebuck, who is, other than Linus Olmark, is probably like one of your top Vezina finalists this year.
Mhm.
But what they didn't have was a lot of people beyond their big guys, their depth, which is, something they did have in 2018, unfortunately. So, Nino Niederreiter gives them exactly that. Somebody who can play in the middle of the lineup and add some scoring pop. And
Yeah.
again, he'll be there for another year too.
Yeah. It's interesting to me as you look at what Nino has done in Winnipeg and look kind of back on his brief time here in Nashville. And we're seeing some of the same things. Like you said, we're seeing somebody who's going to score, but he's still a little streaky in Winnipeg, which was something that people had kind of noticed when it came about time for the trade deadline, is that Nino is a little bit streaky when it comes to scoring offensively. We're still seeing some of that in Winnipeg, but I think it makes a big difference if the role is your depth scorer for us versus with Nashville. He was Nashville's leading scorer for a little bit, for a long time. And the role that they wanted from Nino, I think, was a little bit different in Nashville. So even though I don't know that his production is that much more in Winnipeg, maybe the role fits him better, and what they needed from him is a little bit better fit. And look, Nino Niederreiter probably is going to be one of the most endearing former Predators ever, which is funny. He was here for like 4 blinks, 4 sleeps. We had
Yeah.
Nino Niederreiter, but fans really loved him.
Let's wait to say that until we make sure he
Let's
doesn't
see what happens.
ruin this game coming
Yeah,
up here Saturday, and B doesn't plow over Juuse Saros again and
that's
knock him
true.
out for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, we'll circle back to this conversation on Monday and just see where it ends up landing.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna still talk about a couple other players that the Predators parted ways with. Yeah, we got some things we need to talk about, especially with one of them. We're gonna do that in just a minute. But first, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, you want to make sure that you can handpick the best stars. Well, the same thing is true if you're putting together your business team. If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You're not going to spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. You can do it all at Indeed. You can find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of professional hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in the search, according to US Indeed data. With Indeed matching as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So visit Indeed.com/locked on to start hiring now. That is Indeed.com/locked on. One more time, Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. You need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right, Ann. So we talked about two people who I think, from their new team's perspective, were good pickups, good trade deadlines. Let's talk about somebody with, as the guy from The Simpsons said, the buyer's remorse.
Oh no.
Let's start off, because I feel like we're going to talk more about this guy anyway.
Yeah.
The Tanner Jeannot trade.
Yeah.
This was the one that had the entire NHL going. What?
Yeah.
A
Is
first
that a typo?
Yeah, it's like that can't be right, can it? A first round pick and a bunch of other picks for Tanner Jeannot, who, bless his heart, isn't quite the same guy
Yeah.
in Tampa as he is in Nashville. Um, trying to bring up his on his game by game stats, but I think it was 1 goal and 3 assists
Yes.
in just 16, 18 games, I believe
Yeah.
it was 19 games, 1 goal, 3 assists. And, he's not even getting like those extensive penalty killing minutes like he was in Nashville.
Yeah.
Like he is like averaging like 12 minutes a game
Yeah.
in his last month or so with Tampa Bay. And it's hard to kind of look at this. And I know, like, when the trade happened and Tampa announced it, and Julien Brisebois, Tampa Bay's GM, said, hey, like, if we see a player that we think is going to fill a need, that we think is going to step in for us, we're willing to go out and just pay for him. Like, we're willing to go out, and trade, a draft pick 3 years from now for, a guy that we think is going to help us win a cup this year. I was all for that. Like, I defended that. I was like, look, I agree. Like, that's like the LA Rams thing from the NFL last year. It's like, look, if you see a chance to win your cup and like the window is a little bit limited, why not just go out and just go balls to the wall and do what you can to make sure you keep winning the cup?
Yeah.
It just doesn't appear that Tanner Jeannot is that, X factor difference maker that he is for Tampa. He is, he is getting penalty kill time, which is a good thing for them. But I just, boy, I look at his time on ice, and I look at some other penalty killers around the league, and I say, do you think the Lightning could have gotten better value?
Yes.
With less stuff to give up, including a first round pick in 3 years that who knows, Steven Stamkos retires.
You're going to wish you had that pick.
Yeah, maybe you wish you had that.
Yeah. This was a really interesting one for me. I mean, yes, so much around this was about what Tampa Bay gave up, what Nashville got for Tanner Jeannot. But Jeannot is one of those players that I think people still are trying to nail down. You remember David Poile protected him in the expansion draft, did not protect Johansson and Duchesne. So this is a player that GMs see something in, and he had just a really incredible year with the Nashville Predators. At one point, we talk about the herd line was so foundational for the Nashville Predators. There's no way they would break up the herd line. That line kind of got broken up earlier in this season as they were trying to figure out how to piece together a Nashville Predators team that was going to find success. They didn't quite get there. I think it's really interesting because I expected the move to be a spark for Jeannot. Like, I thought maybe in the shuffle of trying to figure out what Nashville needs to do to get where they thought they were going to go this season. Jeannot was one of the players that kind of got lost in that shuffle, not playing with Trenin and Sissons. But I don't think that's happening in Tampa Bay. And I think Tampa Bay is probably as surprised by that as Nashville Predators fans are. I really felt like this was going to be one of those trades where you're going to move the guy and you're going to see fresh start, much more clearly defined role, team hungry for a cup. I felt like this was going to be a situation where we were going to see Tanner Jeannot maybe pop off. And we haven't seen that yet, which is, I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah.
Because I think there are still people who think Tanner Jeannot is the Tanner Jeannot, the 25 goal scorer, 20 goal scorer, Tanner Jeannot.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is we were talking about like maybe Tanner Jeannot doesn't score 24 goals like he did last year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the shooting percentage comes down, but you expect kind of the level of play to still be there. And it really wasn't this year. And I think that goes back to, okay, was that just an environment of him on the Nashville Predators?
Right.
Or was it just, him as a player having a rough year? And again, like he's playing a role in Tampa. Like he is certainly playing a role in Tampa. Is it just the role that the Lightning had in mind when they made this big investment? Because they've kind of just been like sleepwalking through the second half, of the season since the deadline. They've had some rough stretches. They've had some rough games. They're kind of middle of the road right now. And, I think if you're Tampa, that's a trade that you're going to wind up regretting. Maybe Tanner Jeannot does get you a cup. Like maybe, Tampa turns it on in the playoffs. Jeannot is, a player that shores up that fourth line, gets you some good penalty kill minutes. Maybe that's what happens. But I think, if you're the Lightning, you probably could have gotten a player that just as well or better for less.
Yeah.
And speaking of, let's talk about Mikael Granlund, shall we?
Bless.
I was on the Locked On podcast live stream when we talked to Hunter Hodes from Locked On Penguins. And we and him together were trying to make sense of this for Penguins. He's just like, we have like 50 Mikael Granlunds. That's not who we need right now.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Mikael Granlund, kind of mirroring when he was brought over to the Preds from Minnesota. 1 goal, 3 assists in 17 games, which, is just, same number as Tanner Jeannot. But the difference between the two, Penguins brought in Mikael Granlund to score some points, and he ain't doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, now I will say he put 5 shots up on Nashville, so it's not like he's not trying.
But out of spite for us.
Right.
That's a difference.
That's a whole different thing. But I thought this was a very surprising move by the Penguins. I was like, really? I mean, not that we don't love Mikael Granlund, but really, that's what you're going to do? Okay. But where is the assist king from last year? Like, what has happened to Mikael Granlund's game? And he's not, like you said, 1 goal, 3 assists in his games in Pittsburgh. So it's not like he just went to Pittsburgh and they said, okay, don't worry so much about dishing it. Now we want you to shoot it. That's not Mikael Granlund's game right now. Again, this was a trade that I wasn't surprised the Predators dealt him. I was surprised the Penguins took him.
Yeah, because he plays a role. Like, he would have played a good role on somebody, it seems, other than Pittsburgh. Maybe a team like, New Jersey that had some snipers and maybe just needed, 1 or 2 more kind of setup guys.
Yes.
Even, Buffalo, they're kind of out of it now, but, they had guys like Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck who, are very good finishers, very good goal scoring. Maybe they just needed another kind of setup guy. I'm looking for a team like that. And, I think what they kind of had in mind was maybe him stepping in and sort of being that playmaker that gets, the second, third line going. I will say that, Danton Heinen and Ryan Poling aren't exactly Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin.
Fair. Very
So,
fair.
Granlund's not really playing well with bad line mates. Go figure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you make a trade like that. If you're Pittsburgh, you're ideally wanting somebody to kind of elevate whoever you're playing with, not unlike what he did when John Hines first got here.
Yeah.
And he was the guy whose play kind of boosted whoever he was playing with. Hasn't happened in Pittsburgh.
No, it hasn't happened in Pittsburgh, and he's gotten a little bit less ice time, and like you said, his line mates not popping off. This is not a Philip Forsberg, Matt Duchene kind of thing happening here with Mikael Granlund. Yeah, this one, I just still don't get this, and it's a little bit hard. It's a little bit hard to see Mikael Granlund, to see his game struggle. So yeah, this one's a little tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. That's a trade we've already talked about that I think the Penguins are going to regret. I mean, they may not even get into the postseason. So we'll see. They're on the outside looking in right now.
I know.
Try to contain your joy, and
it just makes the family reunion so much easier.
Fair. Also, the Nashville Predators have the same amount of points as the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's just throw that out there.
They're not wrong.
Yeah. So here's our question to you, the loyal listener. Is there a trade that you think either the Preds are going to regret or maybe the other team may regret down the road? What do you think of if you've been able to watch them, what do you think of the departed Preds play so far in their new teams? Let us know. Leave us a comment on our YouTube page or tweet us at LO_Predators. We'd love to get your thoughts. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. Read my work at penaltyboxradio.com. However you're listening to us, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out and lets you know when we have fresh stuff out for you. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.